pleasure to be with everyone today to mark such a significant occasion, and an honour as always to partner with our friends and colleagues at the AJC. I want to talk about the British Jewish community because the Balfour Declaration is a great matter of pride for British Jews because, and I don't want to contradict my colleague Daniel, and I won't, but I will just say, of course, it was the UK government that granted it. And it was leading members of the Zionist movement in Britain, and in fact the wider Jewish community in Britain, who worked with Weitzman to achieve it, of course. And the story and the tale of Balfour is a fascinating and deeply touching tale, full of twists and turns, not just in Britain, but of course across the world. And it's a mark of history which can never and should never be undone. And as we celebrate 100 years, we should regard that as a launch place, not as an end. It is indeed part of the continuum. And what the Balfour Declaration did in Britain was it took Britain from being something of a backwater in Jewish terms and political terms, and the Balfour Declaration and the British Mandate which followed propelled the British Jewish community to the forefront of world Jewry and gave the community a very special place in the story of the rebirth of the State of Israel, which came about just over 30 years later. And of course we need to remember that Lord Samuel, who was born in Liverpool and was a Zionist, became the first Jew to govern the historic land of Israel in 2,000 years when he was appointed High Commissioner to administer the British Mandate in Palestine. To think about what's been happening currently, what I can bring to you today is, of course, I come to Brussels just a few days after probably one of the most splendid, spectacular, historic, memorable weeks for the British Jewish community, as we celebrated and marked the occasion of 100 years since the Balfour Declaration. As the Board of Deputies of British Jews, we're the representative body for the Jewish community across all denominations, from the secular through to the very observant. We are that voice. And so we worked with other communal organisations under the banner of Balfour 100, and we took a proactive approach to come together up and down the United Kingdom to host, develop celebratory events, not just celebration, but education, debate, challenge. In all of these ways, we marked the occasion, and the events reached something of a crescendo last week in our synagogues, in our communities, at the heart of government, in schools, everywhere you can think of across the country. And the week started, and for me this brought it all together, a Board of Deputies parliamentary reception in the Speaker's House, in the Houses of Parliament, which we partnered with Conservative Friends of Israel, Labour Friends of Israel, Lib Dem Friends of Israel, and the All-Party Parliamentary Group and British Jews. Why does that matter? Because together we all stood, of all politics and none, in order to mark the Balfour Declaration and to celebrate what it means today for the State of Israel. And I'm glad to tell you that Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson joined us and addressed us, and he spoke of the magic, the genius and the miracle that is Israel. And I think that is a very fair summary. He also, of course, shared with us that he was once a humble kibbutznik doing the washing up. I was a humble kibbutznik once. I think I cleared the tables in the dining room. So it just shows where you can get to. That probably also says something about magic, genius and miracle of Israel. We were joined on Thursday night, and you will have heard much of this. On Thursday night there was a celebratory dinner in London hosted by the current Lord Rothschild, attended and addressed by Prime Minister Theresa May and Prime Minister Netanyahu. And indeed, we were very pleased that AJC Simone Rodin was also present as one of the honoured guests. And of course, there are other narratives out there. Of course, there are those who seek to undermine and delegitimise the Balfour commemorations. But I can say to you that with very few exceptions, they just did not reach the critical mass that I feel they were hoping for. Even those who were more critical, for example, Labour's spokesperson on foreign affairs, even she, Emily Thornberry, came to an event hosted by BICOM and the Jewish News and took the questions and actually not just attended but participated in the debate, took the views and addressed the importance of the Balfour Declaration. And so I think that bears out some recent polls that we've seen in Britain about wider British attitudes towards Israel, and that polling does not show a dramatic change in opinions towards the conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but in fact it shows, interestingly, a bit of a decrease on actions such as boycotts, divestment and sanctions. I think that in Britain, I feel in Britain, we can consider those celebrations of last week a success. But I want to say to you, we are far from complacent. Whether it's in trade unions or in student unions, whether it's in the boycotts, divestments and sanction movement, or indeed in the anti-Semitism that we have sadly seen, indeed in circles, there will always be those who work to delegitimise Israel and diminish its standing in the UK, but we will continue to work diligently to ensure that this won't happen. Our commitment is to ensure that 100 years of Balfour is not the end of the celebrations, but is the continuation of a process, the continuation of a country, and a continuation of international relations that can only and should only continue to prosper. Thank you.